What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Walk and Talk podcast. We're going to get into it real shortly, but first, I am Ryan, and I'm joined by the one and only.
Chris himself. Hello, everyone. Good for you to see me again. Because I can't see you. But yeah, no, happy to be back. Happy to get this going, learning, kind of episode 2. So it might be a little shaky, but we're having fun. So
Yeah, we're getting better. We're opening the floor up, and it's been a week since we recorded our last one. So maybe let's just talk about our week, how that's been so far.
yeah. To be honest, I've had a kind of crazy little hectic week, or weekend, I should say, but still kind of getting in or staying in that workflow and doubling that with kind of music on the other end. And we had a few practices, had a few family things this weekend, but overall just been pretty good, staying positive and persevering where I need to. But what about you, Mr. Kansas? Oh, and football started actually, so
Yeah,
that's a plus.
real
We're
that
there.
is
We're back there.
exciting. The
Yeah.
Niners got blown out by the Raiders though, which was really
Preseason.
brutal. And I keep telling myself it's preseason, it doesn't matter. But anytime that you see your team on the losing end of the Raiders, it's just a tough pill to
The
swallow. I'm not
it
gonna
was
lie.
it was the Jimmy G revenge game, so you're good.
Yeah, that's his only good game of the season. It's fine.
I hope we can we can hope. That's funny.
But yeah, so just getting back into the vibe of work. Enjoy the weekend just because it's nice to not have to go into work every day. But I say that
Yeah.
as I'm 3 weeks into my job. But
Yeah.
um, it's chill hanging out. Just I have to register my car here, which is gonna be a bit interesting. You gotta like take it to highway patrol and get it inspected as something. So it's a little bit of a different experience than what I'm used to. And also, it's my first time registering a car, so that'll be interesting. I'm gonna try and do that this week.
Expensive. That's what
Hopefully,
that
not
was
too expensive.
the worst part for me was I was like, dude, why do I pay this? But
Hopefully,
you
it's
know,
not too expensive here.
that
Um,
is true, and with that car too. So we can hope. Fingers crossed. Let us know how it goes. We'll hear about that.
Yeah, we'll know. If I go this week, then I'll be sure to tell you what the vibe is next week. But
Yeah.
yeah, so today we got some requests to talk just about a little bit about our high school experience. We talked about college a bit last time, so it's only right. We're kind of moving through that progression. We're going backwards, but it's okay. High school is where we were first shaped, and then we went to college. So just a reminder that if you don't know, me and Chris have known each other for our whole life. We went to school with each other up until college. So a lot of our experiences are a little or similar, or at least we've been there for each other during these experiences. So it's been interesting and been fun. But I guess I'll open up the floor to you. Do you want to share some insight in just high school experience and what it was like?
Yeah. No. So just as a little precursor as well, we'll probably even because we went to elementary school together, and also because we were so, I guess, kind of close with our class. I'll probably share some stuff from there as well. But yeah, like Ryan said, we've been in each other's lives kind of as far as going to school together, and then when we went to college, at least still talking and keeping up with each other. For since like what kindergarten, right? So yeah, if we weren't directly in the story, we at least know who we're talking about, and how we showed up to school on Monday. So 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 yeah. But anyway, yeah, I would for high school, I think. So as a preface, we went to a school in L.A. County, um, in Encino Hills ish, called actually not called, but it was an all boys school. That I mean, that's kind of the biggest shocker, I guess. That's to me, that's the most important detail, because
Private.
yes, private all boys school, private, we should say private Catholic
Yeah.
all boys school, I guess. Yeah, that's the full detail right there. Was a school about 500 kids, give or take. So very small. Our class size was about 100 to 125 or so. So you knew everyone. You had some version of relationship with anyone, or with everyone. Um, Even if you weren't close, you knew of them. You knew, you probably had a class with them or shared something with them. So I think, yeah, we just wanted to kind of talk about a few aspects of that. The small school, the private school, the all boys aspect of it. Um, But most importantly, I guess, their main selling point is you enter as a boy and leave as a man. So talking about just our development, um, important lessons we learned, because there was a lot. I don't know. Obviously you can speak on yours, but I can happily say and proudly say and confidently say that the growth that I did there was critical to my life in general, to my personality development, and to my overall health as well. I think the trials and tribulations that I had in high school really like set me on a path, seemingly for success, that gave me knowledge, I think, access, and directly gave me knowledge to, things that puts me ahead of the curve as far as knowing that at such a young age. So, but yeah, what was it like for you, the rough sketch?
Um, I enjoyed it a lot. I think, honestly, a lot of people are like really surprised, like you said, when they hear that we went to an all boys high school. Um, a lot of questions come up, like, oh, what did you guys do? Like, how did you
Say
interact?
it,
Like,
girls.
girls, yeah. Like, did you
The
talk to
females
any
at yeah.
girls? Um, but honestly, I thought it was a really cool experience. If you're watching and you're wondering, like, oh, should I? Like, yeah, try it. Why not? Don't count it out, because I think you develop in a very different way going to an all guys high school than if you went to a co-ed high school. And a lot of those skills are, very valuable when you actually get into the real world. I actually enjoyed it so much that I went back to actually work there. So I'm, I am working there still part time. But yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it already, but I want to get to it a little later. Do you have any like crazy stories, or just kind of, stuff that helped you, or
Yeah.
examples, I guess?
Yeah, we can start. I mean, I guess some funny stories. I mean, it was just so the. If I'm being honest, if I ever need to defend the decision to go to an all boys high school, how I explained it is like it was a fraternity for 4 years, and I think, yes, it's like a little excuse, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of truth to it, that there was just crazy stuff happening all the time. Like there was just like random stuff. We had one teacher like throw a bat into a wall because, as an an act of intimidation. We had just characters that, like, I mean, you had like, it was a small class, but for such a close knit like group of young men, like, or young boys at the time, really, um you had every personality on the spectrum. You had people on the spectrum. You had you had people, you had athletes, you had musicians, you had theater kids, you had kids that were wealthy or from wealthy families, you had kids that were from lower classes, you had kids who loved school, kids who hated school, kids who wanted to go to college, kids who couldn't wait to get, be done with it. And just like every end of the spectrum, kids who were social, kids who weren't, kids who partied, kids who didn't, and everything in between. And so that's just provided for some, and I'm sure they'll come out as we talk and just, in different episodes and stuff. Um, but yeah, dude, just like wild things, kids, getting out of certain things. To be honest, on the topic, if we're gonna bring it up, just crazy stories as far as, I'll leave it vague. Kids exploring their sexuality at an all guys high school. You're pretty limited in your options there. So that was another part of it, really, which factored into, I think, everyone that went there, all of their personalities. Just, you're around dudes for like the vast majority of your 13 to 17, roughly 14 to 17, 18, whatever. Um, and so yeah, just different things. I think I don't know where you're at, but I would love to be just kind of honest about the experience and what it really meant. There are certain thoughts that happened, whether it was doubts or whether it was successes or shortcomings and all that, where it's like, yeah, I don't know, like, crazy stuff. That's all I can,
Yeah,
find, is just saying crazy stuff, man.
yeah, and I think another thing that I really liked about it is that you develop tough skin really quickly,
Yeah, yeah,
because you're hanging out with only guys, and there's a lot of mentality differences between guys and girls where generically, or I guess generally, women are more caring and like nurturing, while guys on the other hand are more like, tough it up, man up, like I'm gonna give you tough love rather than, I guess, I don't know what the other phrase is, like, I guess gentle love. I guess that's the
Yeah.
opposite of tough. um, but you really learn quickly that if you can't take, you know uh, if you can't take shots, you're gonna struggle,
Yeah.
and
It would wouldn't be fun.
it wouldn't be fun. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's another thing of where just developing as a person, like you learn that, you know, people can say things all the time, but like it doesn't matter. Like it's just in fun, and like you got to know how to take critiques and criticisms, um, especially when you know it's coming out of a place of love.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first topic, a good topic, it's a big one, but talking about insecurity, because I think that's something obviously every teen goes through it. If you don't, you're insecure about being insecure. You're in denial. Um, but yeah, no, I just kind of in the sense that once again, like you said, not to say the environment was hostile, but it was. I mean,
It was active.
well, yeah, you got 500 kids trying to figure out how to be a man,
Yeah.
like literally just trying to figure it out. And so, like you said, kind of the shots would be like roasting and just certain things that I know for me was very new because we came from another private school that was 30 kids, and it was like don't be mean to each other and watch your words and stuff. And so going into that, which was a lot just rough, like I would just call it rougher, like not in a not ever did I feel unsafe, but it was rough. You had your guard up a lot of times. So, but yeah, just kind of insecurity. I guess how did that play into your high school years?
I mean, that's like you mentioned. It's everyone goes through it, right? I think there were definitely times. It kind of goes into what we were talking about just with talking to girls, right? Where you don't get much practice. So
Hmm.
then when you're actually going to talk to girls, it's like, oh my gosh, this is like, you know, like I don't do this for 8 hours a day every day. So it's a bit
Hmm.
foreign of a concept at first, right? But
Yeah.
then you're
Yeah.
realizing like, oh well, all of their sports teams practice at our school. We, have sporting events every week, multiple times a week where, our sister school would come over. So after that first initial shock of like, whoa, what do I do? Like this is weird.
Hmm.
Then it's like, oh, I actually like I have nothing to be worried about. Like they're just people, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. An important thing too, because I think another thing to consider is that the difference in like families too for the kids. Because for me, I'm the youngest of three, and I have two older sisters. For you, you're um, a single, or what do you call it?
Only child.
An only child. Thank you. An only child, but then you got people who have five siblings and people who have one, or people who it's like, I mean, their younger siblings 9 years younger than them, or their older sibling is 20 years older than them, and it's like I said, just kind of obviously a vast thing that's at every school, but um, yeah, you take all these boys and you put them in a class, and I think as far as insecurity goes, it's such a funny thing because it's such a like it was like such a double standard, I guess. That it was like if you try, it's like, oh, like why are you trying this in all guys school? But if you didn't try, it's like, oh, you're a bum or like whatever, right? And then at the same time, it's like, okay, if you're seeing a girl after school, you got to be presentable. You're not going to go home before you obviously see her, and so it's like you show up with your shirt maybe a little less
Ironed.
wrinkled,
Yeah,
yeah,
you
a little
ironed it
ironed or
out.
something, right? Yeah,
No,
I
your
remember
mom
that.
ironed it out.
Yeah, no, yeah, that. But no, yeah, I remember freshman year. So before I wrestled freshman year, and I remember one of the seniors that I was on the wrestling team saw me walk in with like a belt and like a tucked in shirt. And the first thing he goes, "Dude, don't tuck your shirt in." He like pulls it out for me. He was like, "Dude, like you can't do that." And I was like, "Okay." Like, so I mean, he was half like cooking me, but also half helping me, and yeah, just such a weird thing because
You
for
were a big
me,
tucked in shirt guy though back then.
I was that was like my personality, dude.
Yeah,
I had a shaved head because it was easier. Had never got a haircut at that point besides, like my mom cutting my hair.
the buzz.
Um, I was a rule follower. I'm not gonna party all of high school. Um, I'm gonna save myself, for marriage and all that. And it's just like, just such a very kind of straight edge going into it. And like you said, it was a very big shock to see people from, different parts of LA that were just different from me, and like exposed once again, still safe because it was a private school, but like to me at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, like,
You're just meeting a bunch of new people, so it's like it can be scary
yeah, with different
sometimes.
stories, different standards, different set of rules and whatnot. So
And it's the first time that a lot of people meet this many different people because
yeah, yeah,
you don't really get that in elementary school too much.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, were you done with your story?
Yeah, yeah. That's
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember having too many stories like that. Um, I just know, like I mentioned earlier, just tough skin. I
yeah,
remember just like going at it with kids, like just shot for
yeah,
shot, back and forth, and it's just like it's weird to just for that to happen the first time, right? Because when that happens, like emotions run high, especially all guys school. The
yeah,
testosterone is pumping, but
yeah,
then after it's like you just like dap each other up and you're good and you laugh about it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
in the moment, it's not like that. But after it is,
yeah,
and that's another thing that you can only get at an all guys school because guys will just let each other go. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And that was another thing that that I kind of liked about it is you can get your emotions out, but you know that after everything's chill, and I
yeah,
think that's another thing that's very different with a lot of with girls.
yeah, yeah. So I think another couple things we could talk about. First is I guess the role of the faculty that worked there, because obviously they played a big part, but at the same time, I mean, I'll just be honest, they were good. They were really good as far as how they
Yeah.
handled just situations. They knew when to butt in because it needed to be mediated, and they knew when it would, things would sort themselves out. So, one aspect of that was the coaching. I know we both played sports, obviously. I think freshman year, there was, so for me at least, I don't know, you could tell me about it, but obviously we both joined the football team, but there was this almost this like instant like beginning of the Hunger Games where you're like, take as much ground as you can cover, and it's like establish dominance here, and talk your smack here, and say that, oh yeah, I'm big and tough in this way, and like, oh no, that's not my thing, but like cover as much ground as you can. And it was, I just remember for myself, there were certain things that I embellished that just weren't the case. Like certain things, like I know for football, I came into that saying like, oh, I was a big hitter, and it was like I wasn't. I wasn't. I had a successful middle school career, but like I was so undersized that it's like, but you want to like talk it and sell it, because then it's like you get respect. And so, um, but yeah. Anyway, just that, and then as far as how the teachers, because what we expected people to want from us, how the teachers or faculty in general just kind of shaped it to ask specific things of us that helped us essentially with the image we were putting out. And I guess, yeah, just kind of talk about some of the lessons you learn, and interactions you have with the faculty and whatnot.
Yeah, I think football example is really good because
Yeah.
we both played football. It was my first time playing tackle football, and I've always had a long injury of getting or a long history of getting injured while playing sports, just
Yeah.
or you know daily life. I don't know
Lucky.
how, I don't know why, but the injuries find me, and I'm not like I know there are a lot of people who are like fake injuries. That's not me. Like I'm getting broken noses and broken bones, and just somehow it's happening.
Spinal.
Sp- spinal, which I'll get to in a second. But you know, coming in as a freshman to high school, playing football for the first time, and I'm a I'm not I'm not a narrow fella, perhaps. So basically, I was on the line, but I look next to me, and the other freshman linemen are like 6 foot, like 260.
6 foot large.
And I'm just like, yo, how am I
Yeah.
supposed to block these guys? Like, there's no
Yeah.
way. But despite that, like it wasn't. You didn't feel like you were pushed away. I think is
Sure.
is
Okay.
a big like big ups to the coaches, right? Where even if you're not playing, like you're still getting the same amount of reps in practice. Maybe it's like on the side, but
Mhm.
you're still learning the techniques. You're still hitting bags, like it's all the same. Now, obviously, once you get up to like the varsity level, it's different, right?
Yeah.
The best, the better players will play all the time. They'll get the majority of the practice time, and the game time. But coming in as a freshman into a completely new experience, I thought that was something that was like that really helped a lot. Now, with that being said, we did, for some reason, we were drilling against the varsity line who went to, I mean, you know, our big fellas.
Big fellas.
I
Yeah.
mean, I said, 6 foot 260 for the freshmen. These guys were 6'8", 325 as seniors, and I'm just like, oh my god. Meanwhile I'm 5 foot and like 160. Like I have no chance against these guys. But we're running full speed drills, and I ended up breaking my spine. Um, which is
You ground it down because it wasn't like one
it.
thing from my understanding, but it was like just
Yeah,
daily.
it was just hitting. It was just hitting over and over
Yeah.
again, and
And
then
you were new, obviously.
yeah, and one time, and then finally it just hit. It just cracked, and I was like, oh, and and then I finished up the practice. Next morning, I couldn't walk. I was like, okay, maybe something's wrong here. I don't know, but perhaps. Um, and yeah, it wasn't the first time where I'd like continued to play through injuries and stuff because, like I said,
Yeah.
it happens so much. But this one, I was like, yeah, something's going on here. Um, I guess that was like my main like at least early on sports story. When it comes to the teachers, a lot of training goes into how they're taught and how they come into an all guys school because guys and girls learn very differently. There's a
Yeah.
lot of I touched on this earlier, but there's a lot of biological differences between men and women. Just when it comes to how their brains work, how they express emotion, whatever, all of that different stuff. And all of those different things, sorry. um, and the teachers at our high school were trained to teach guys. That's
Yeah.
how you have to learn that sort of mentality teaching at an all guys school. And they ask different things of us. They say that you get breaks in the middle of class because attention spans for guys are shorter than they are for girls generally.
Hmm.
And like it allows you to just kind of keep focused, and then once you're losing focus, okay, break, come back in, and you're focused again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they hope so, but
Hopefully. Yeah. That's the idea
but
at least.
yeah, no, I think that was the thing because so as a reminder, I still work obviously with teens daily and specifically in a mental health scene, and so literally majority of the things that I am handing down to these teens is stuff that I learned either from myself or was taught in high school. That being one of them, just attention span. And I think one of the biggest things that I'm looking at my notes from last time that we kind of touched on last time, but um, our high school kind of made a good approach very well was the expectation versus like reality essentially, where it's like or the goal, like the ideal versus reality, I should say, where it's like ideally you come back from break and you're good. Ideally you are able to focus 20 minutes or 30 minutes at a time. Ideally, because you only have a certain class 3 or 4 times a week that on the rotating block schedule, like you can put more energy into it while also being realistic about the fact that sometimes you just won't have it. Sometimes you'll have a rough day. A lot of kids had super chaotic, homes, domestic issues and stuff like that. And so coming into school, whether you get like, I remember one time in like Spanish class, we had a kid. who got in a car accident before, and the teacher obviously was just like, I'm gonna give him a sec, right? Where it's like we were able to have that kind of personal connection and essentially mentorship as far as you know things like that. That gave us space, kind of like to stretch our arms. Does that make sense? Where it's like, let me figure this out. Like I said, they knew when to let us learn on our own and when to step in. Um, so
And,
yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead.
and adding on to that, you because of that, you create these close relationships with your teachers.
Yeah.
They go out of their way and say, listen, if you need help, come to me after school, or whenever you have free time, lunch, whatever. I'll take time out of my day to help you out if you need help. And you grow that bond in where even you and the teacher can even, like, we had a lot of teachers that would, like, roast kids, but
Yeah.
it wasn't malicious. It
It was like
was
banter.
out of
Yeah.
love, because, like, oh, I have this relationship with you because you know of how we interact with each other. And, like,
Yeah.
it was like good hearted, and everyone liked it. And if someone didn't like it, then they say, hey, listen, like, I'm not cool with that, and then they back off.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of just yeah, just those were honestly the teachers that we all enjoyed too, because they were human.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
but yeah, kind of moving on. Similar topic, but how we developed in terms of relationships with females, but just kind of socially in general, and learning to be men, gentlemen, and all that stuff. Like how was that for you? Is there anything that stands out specifically?
We had a lot of cross pollination, I think, with our sister school, just because why
Literally. No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
um just because, like, they tried to kind of mix us in. We have events where,
Yeah.
like, half of us would go to their school for the day, half of them would come to our school for the day. And, like I mentioned earlier, just all the sporting events after school. It became normal that there were girls on campus, but after hours.
Yeah.
And it really, like, I mentioned that it's a bit weird at first, right? Because you're not used to this, and it's kind of daunting. Like, oh wow, look, all these girls are here now, and I don't get to practice talking to girls during school, so what am I gonna do? But you really, just the overall morals and stuff that they taught at school. It's always like, respect women, and
Mhm.
you know they're different than you. Like that. That's how it is. They can't take the same stuff that you guys. You know, generally they can't. You know, they don't want you to just
Literal.
be roasting and.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things you're talking about. So we had this thing in high school called Froshbox, where essentially you take insecure 13 and 14-year-old boys from our school and you mix them with our sister school, and you make them randomly assigned, sit at each other's tables, and make the night work. And so
Yeah.
what
Good
they
luck.
did, the idea here was the boys brought the dinner and, like, whatever, we
Dressed up.
hosted it,
You dressed
dressed
up
up.
nice.
Also, I'm pretty sure some of the boys groups were also randomly assigned. Like, I know
Yeah.
I didn't choose my partners,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
luckily they were cool, and I actually still talk to them to this day. Um, but yeah, and so some there you get some pretty crazy stories because I know. So my sisters went to years before me, but went to the sister school of our high school, and I remember at their Froshbox, like they had a kid bring shrimp, but it was frozen and he didn't thaw it. So she went to grab a shrimp and, like, lifted the whole tray, and she goes, "Oh, I'm just gonna leave that there." So, like, just crazy stuff where it's like, that's so awkward, dude. Like, you can't recover from that, or like if the chicken's cold or like undercooked, or like just hilarious stuff. But like you learn, right? And so
Oh man.
um, I'm sure it's more fun for the adults than the kids. I know in my experience it definitely was. A lot of it was
Yeah.
awkward, but
Yeah.
but yeah, no. I mean, just stuff like that. I remember another story I had was, if this girl ever sees this podcast, I am sorry. Okay, but you know her. But we went to middle school together, and so we were hanging out after, or like at one of the Friday night games and stuff, the varsity games. And dude, I was so mean in middle school. Like just as a like I had a little Napoleon complex to be honest, because I was super small. And so one of the main ways I knew how to like relate with females was like just talk smack, like just be mean to them, and then like you'll get a reaction. And so like I don't know. Long story short, she said she was interested in some guy or some guy hit on her or something, and I was like, "Ooh, why would he ever go for you?" And like I didn't mean it. She was beautiful, and I was down. But like, dude, it was bad. And then she just went like, "Oh," and just sat down, and I was like, "Oh no, dude." Instant regret, and I was like, this is just ruined." So,
Oh no.
important lesson, funny in hindsight, and she's doing great right now, so I didn't ruin her life, but but yeah, just I mean just kids figuring stuff out, man. Insecurity in play, you know, age, actual like biological growth and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, do you have any stories about like just figuring life out, man? I know like homecoming is probably a big one, and like just kind of situations where you had to.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I think I always enjoyed like homecoming and like we had a homecoming every year. I mean I assume everyone does, where you have the dance, everyone dresses up, and you gotta ask a girl to
Yeah.
come with you, and that's always like a daunting experience, right? Because it's like, oh well, if she says no, then what? Like then I'm just doomed. Like it's over. But I always just went with like friends, so it was always pretty chill. But you know, you go to dinner before you go the whole nine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get the corsage and all
Pull the
that good
chair. You
stuff.
pull the
Yeah, you
chair.
pull the
You better
chair
use your
out.
coat.
Yeah, exactly. So you know you learn from a young age, like kind of how to treat people and how you treat guys a lot differently than you treat girls.
Yeah. Yeah. I think especially homecoming. I didn't take a guy to homecoming, but no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I think I don't know. I think one thing we can talk about actually, which kind of plays into everything we're talking about, is confirmation. So for me, this was something where I was able to see females on a regular basis. It started sophomore year, right? No, freshman year
I
at
don't even
14.
remember.
I think it started at 14 or so. But 2 years for the people that don't know. So we were raised Catholic Christian, and so one of the things one of the experiences that we had is called confirmation. It's one of the sacraments and all that. But essentially, developmentally, more importantly, it was youth group, and so it was us hanging around with other kids our age. This one was co-ed, and so that for me at the time, I just remember the timing working out to where I was like starting to really get interested in girls, and I got my first haircut at the time, and like started developing a personality. How am I going to relate to girls? How am I going to talk to them, joke with them, make them laugh?
You
Um,
stopped just like hard roasting.
yeah, just stopped hard roasting. I started looking around. I know you were one of the people that I was like just kind of looking at. And I was like, well, he makes them laugh. Let me try to be funny. Let me find out what funny means, right? And yeah, so I just
You,
kind of
you learn from the
started doing
best.
that. Yeah, well, yeah. Um, but anyway, started doing that, and um, yeah, I mean, I got my first kiss at one of the confirmation events, so that was a big moment for me.
Perfect
Went almost,
place. You
yeah,
made sure to leave space for God too.
Jesus was there.
He was watching.
It was supervised. No, but I think that was one thing where it was another like a completely also separate demographic because the confirmation thing was for the most part free. Um, it wasn't expensive at least, and so it was opened up to a much different demographic, and that's where I heard the first time in high school that I heard some of the at the time crazy stories I've ever heard where um, like I said, just kind of domestic abuse, depression, anxiety, trauma, um, like you name it. Like that's kind of where we heard about it, and yeah, just kind of talk about that. I guess how was I know I remember it started slow, but year two it picked up.
Well, we also transferred.
True, you're right.
So I
That's what
think
happened.
once we transferred, like, so initially we had gone, um, and it was just kind of boring. Like, we went with a lot of our middle school friends, and it was just pretty stale. Like it was more just like, oh man, like I have to go. You
Yeah.
know, I don't really want to go because I just want to listen to someone talk for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Um, and so then we transferred to a different place, and it was instant, like the swap, where
Yeah.
it was a lot more people. It was a lot
Exciting.
more exciting. Yeah, it wasn't just like listening to someone talk. It was like, you know, talking with others, and it was more modern, I guess, is the best way to put it. Like it
Well,
seemed like,
youthful. I think. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
youthful.
yeah,
Yeah.
youthful. And the people, like, all the counselors and like instructors were younger, so I think
Yeah.
that also helped a lot, more lively. And I think once that change happened, it was like, oh yeah, like this is fire now. Like I want to go so that I can
Yeah.
see these people that,
There was a little drama. There was
yeah,
attractive. Let's be honest. There was attractive females there.
there
So we
were,
were
yeah, of course, there were some,
Sunday afternoons, man.
there were attractive females. That there's nothing, nothing wrong about
No,
that
no
statement.
lying there.
No lie there. Yeah, thank you. But
Um,
it was fun. I mean, you know, like you mentioned, learning some crazy stories, talking to people who are completely different than me, um,
yeah.
people who went to public school, people who went to private school, people who went to schools with, 5,000 kids. We went to a school with 500, so it's a big difference
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember. So our year 2 retreat. If anyone doesn't know what a retreat is, basically, well, on this one we went for a weekend for 2 nights. We stayed at this like it was a retreat center, so essentially there's different houses and cottages and stuff. So all the guys stayed in one little house, and then all the girls stayed in another. There were counselors and supervisors. The whole thing was planned. We ate there and everything. That was the retreat where I got my smooch. But also, more importantly, it was where I don't know if you remember specifically it, but we had a moment to. Dude, I don't even actually remember the activity, but I just remember it's where everyone started spilling. Like everyone was just talking about their lives, like the trauma, like things they wanted to let go of and like move on from, and that's where for me, and at the time we had talked about it, it was like these people are spilling like traumatic stories, and we're like, well, one time I didn't take out the trash, and my mom said, "Damn,"
It
and
took my phone away
like
for a day.
exactly, yeah, and I was, I cried maybe, but like it was like such a culture shock where we had learned, I think, that was the moment where we got exposed to a lot, and for me, not only hearing that, but also seeing the healing process, seeing the support that comes from that, and essentially knowing, like it was a reality check in a way that
Maybe your life isn't that bad.
I mean that, but also that I don't know, just that how much is possible as far as the human mind, and then in that setting with God and religion. But um, for me at the time, it was like these are crazy stories. Like what? When is mine coming? Like kind of thing. So
Yeah, you
so
started looking at your parents a little differently. Like, when
yeah,
are
you're
you
like, well,
gonna?
what's going on? When are you gonna snap? Yeah, no. But yeah, how was that? Hearing all those stories and whatnot, how was that for you?
It was, yeah, I agree. It was very, very strange because, like you mentioned, I didn't have any of those like crazy stories either of
Mm.
like, trauma or anything. It's like my story is like, oh, I got hurt and I couldn't play baseball or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah,
like it it puts things into perspective. Like, yeah, why am I complaining about this
yeah,
when someone else is going through much worse and not complaining?
yeah, yeah. And so I think from there, so I know this is where our timelines start to split. I think I remember. Well, what I do remember is that the sort of end of sophomore year and beginning of junior year got really hazy. Um, I know for me that was kind of probably the toughest year of my life, as far as, I mean, it ended up being one of the most important ones, but that's where I went through most of, I've found my story essentially, where it's like, if I were to do that retreat again, that's what I would share. And yeah, I think that's where I did most of the development, to not obviously get too into it. Um, Experiencing depression, experiencing um, certain thoughts of kind of, suicide, and just, this and that, just existential questions of life. What is the meaning? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Why, part of it honestly was, why didn't I have stories? Why is my life so simple? Um, did definitely play into it, and is the number one kind of source that I look back on. If someone were to be like, where have you done the most development, I would, like, zero hesitation say that it was kind of that year that kickstarted my career, kickstarted my mentality, kickstarted a greater appreciation for life and relationships, and an incentive to be positive and optimistic. But yeah, I mean, after that, for me, that was, like I said, kind of end of sophomore year, beginning of junior year, that I did a lot of learning. I think is a good way to put it. But that's around the time, like you said, you stopped playing sports, right?
Yeah, I think junior year was my last year of playing. Um, Mostly due to injuries. That kind of cut a lot of my cut my athletic career short, and I kind of my mentality kind of shifted away from traditional sports. I started getting more into games, and I put together a team for our high school, and we started competing nationally. Um, then when I went to college, then I started playing on on the college teams, just bouncing around, filling whatever holes needed to be filled. And yeah, that's so definitely there was a big change there. Just coming from a spot where traditionally I had been into sports my entire life, traditional sports at least, playing baseball, doing martial arts, football, whether that's flag or, we already discussed my endeavors into tackle football. But yeah, just, that's a big part of your life that gets taken away, and every athlete goes through it at some point, where either they get injured or they realize they're not good enough and they can't play at the next level. Then, it gets rough because this big part of your life is just gone. And, we talked about episode 1, just the competitiveness of
Yeah.
sports, and how you talked about people who played sports are just more competitive, and, they want to make competition out of things that necessarily aren't,
Yeah. Yeah.
competition. And so then that's a big loss. So that kind of was the main reason why I kind of turned over, because I needed some sort of competitive outlook. And typing to people online after you kill them is pretty good. It's pretty good
Yeah.
way to get that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. The outlet for that, and also obviously as we were growing as teens and whatnot, you need that, I think, to grow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say, as far as the question goes, kind of coming out of any turbulent years or whatnot, what would you say to yourself if you were to meet yourself kind of at that time? We'll say like sophomore, junior year-ish. Like, what would you say? I don't even say limit it to advice. I would just say, what would you say?
Um, Probably that everything will be fine. Even though you're not playing sports anymore, like, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Because that was a big loss.
Yeah.
I've said it already, but that was a big loss, and you kind of feel like your life's purpose is taken away. You know.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
dreams too. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, dreams, of course, like going to college and playing, and all of this stuff just gets cut short because of you know things you can't control sometimes. So everything will be fine. Just chill out, go with the flow. Roll with the punches. It's still kind of my mentality now, right? Just take what comes your way and do what you can with it. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think probably very similar. I think for me, it would be just a different version of the same thing. It's just essentially just to trust that what I went through was necessary, um, and that eventually I would be able to turn what was at the time, well, was the worst part of my life into a part of my personality that I'm most proud of. Lessons that I learned that I hold closest to my heart, stuff like that, and just trust that the growth will happen and that I had everything I needed to come out of that and flip it into something positive. Um, but yeah, I think it's just such an interesting thing. Like I said, it is the demographic that I work with, but like we said, every kid goes through that insecurity. Every kid goes through those years or those months of just intense doubt. Why didn't it work with so and so? Why can't I pass these classes? Why didn't I get into this school? Why didn't I get this score? Why didn't I make the team? Why didn't whatever it is, right? They all go through it, and I think to be able to have a lens of understanding that it's only temporary and that it is another chapter in the story, and that if you have a winning mindset, you will win. I mean, you will find a way to win in something and to persevere. I don't know. It's a cool thing for me, I think, um, to kind of talk about an important part of my development and a mindset that I do hold to this day and want to share, I guess, because it's comforting.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're kind of getting late on time here, but I do want to, for those who are still here, I want to leave you with the words of the great Kelly Clarkson, who said, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller.
Amen.
Doesn't
Unless you
mean
can't.
I'm lonely when I'm alone." I think.
Amen.
I think that's the next line. I
Hey,
hope it
I like
is.
that.
Even if it
I like
isn't,
that.
that was off the dome. No,
That was,
I'm pretty sure.
and it was Ryan who said it.
Yeah, then it was me. But yeah, I think we're gonna close out off on that note. We still got some stuff we want to talk about for next week, so we'll throw that
Yeah.
in there. We'll add that on. Thank you guys for listening this far. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Have a good week. We will see you next time.